When the Great Depression gripped America, countless families found unexpected relief in a surprising source: long-lost fruits that today's supermarkets don't even recognize. These weren't common backyard plants. They were vital survival assets that fed families when the economy collapsed and work vanished. As bread lines curled around city streets, country families with these 25 tough fruits held on to a lifeline of nourishment and survival. It's time to rediscover the forgotten fruits that helped our grandparents pull through America's hardest economic struggle. American pennies. During the gritty 1930s, life was harsh, but some families had a hidden advantage sprouting in their gardens: the American penny. Dubbed nature's candy, this fruit wasn't just sweet, it was treasured. Unlike store-bought sugar, these fruits delivered bold, natural flavor that made their way into baked goods and jams when sugar was simply unaffordable. Their timing was just as extraordinary. Pimmin trees yielded their vibrant orange fruits only after the first frost, offering rare freshness when most other crops were long gone. Their toughness made them priceless. Pimmin trees thrived through droughts, poor soils, and neglect, all while giving generous harvests every year. Families dried them like dates, storing them through cold seasons without needing refrigeration. Rich in vitamins, pimmins helped families stay nourished at a time when fresh produce was rare and hard to access. Pawpaw. Now here's a fruit so unusual today that it almost sounds made up: the pawpaw. Think of a creamy, custard-like fruit that tasted like the tropics, yet grew naturally in forests across the eastern United States. These wild fruits reached lengths of 6 inches, and during the Depression, they were as precious as gold. While few know of them now, back then, pawpaws gave families something more than food. They gave a taste of comfort. Flavored like bananas, mangoes, and pineapples all in one, they brought joy to hard times. Better still, they grew wild, with zero effort required. No planting, no watering, just gather and enjoy. Containing up to 7% protein, more than any other fruit, they served as a crucial meat alternative. Many even learned to grow them from seed, adding pawpaws to home gardens for long-term, self-reliant nutrition during the nation's darkest era. Mulberries. While pawpaws offered a tropical surprise, families had another time-tested secret growing in their yards: mulberry trees. What made these trees exceptional was their astonishing yield. A single mature tree could deliver up to 50 gallons of fruit in just one season. During the Great Depression, mulberries became a treasured staple for families, offering what felt like a personal fruit factory right in the backyard. For nearly 6 weeks, the trees dropped sweet berries daily, and all it took to harvest them was placing cloth beneath the branches to catch the falling bounty. Smart households quickly realized that mulberries offered multiple benefits from a single source. They enjoyed the berries fresh, turned them into preserves, and dried them into raisin-like snacks to last through winter. Even the surplus fruit wasn't wasted. It was fed to chickens and pigs, keeping essential livestock nourished through hard times. But what truly set mulberries apart was their ease of care. No pruning, no spraying, no pampering. While other fruits faltered under drought and neglect, mulberries flourished, delivering dependable harvests even in the bleakest years. Ground cherries. If mulberries were productive, ground cherries were pure brilliance. These small plants acted like natural candy factories, yielding hundreds of marble-sized golden fruits wrapped neatly in paper-like husks. Unlike delicate fruits needing careful storage, ground cherries came with built-in protection. Their own husks kept them fresh for months without any refrigeration. Kids growing up in the Depression loved finding these tiny treasures in the garden, peeling back the papery skins to uncover sweet fruit that tasted like a mix of pineapple and vanilla. But their real magic? Once planted, ground cherries returned year after year through self-seeding. In a time when both money and seeds were scarce, these comeback crops became increasingly valuable over the years. Families learned to store ground cherries in their husks in cool, dry places where they stayed good for months. Long after other fruits were gone, these golden gems remained, a rare delight during tough seasons. Gooseberries. Unlike berries that needed pampering, families during the Depression turned to a tougher option: gooseberries. These weren't the soft, modern ones. These were rugged, wild varieties that thrived even in shaded corners, poor soil, and neglected areas. Every part of the plant served a purpose. Tart green berries were picked early for pies and preserves, while ripened purple-red ones offered sweet, fresh eating later. This two-phase harvest nearly doubled the plant's yield. But gooseberries had another advantage: that they didn't even need sugar to be preserved. At a time when store-bought sugar was a costly luxury, gooseberries had a built-in secret: natural pectin. This let families create jellies and jams with little or no added sweetener, turning these tart berries into affordable preserves. And the most amazing part? Gooseberry bushes were long-lived. With almost no maintenance, they grew more productive every year. One simple row of these resilient plants could provide gallons of fruit year after year, a true treasure during the harshest years of the Great Depression. American elderberries. When the Depression took hold, something even more essential than food became rare: medicine. That's when elderberries stepped into the spotlight. What seemed like an ordinary wild shrub became a vital home remedy. While other fruits just filled bellies, elderberries offered healing power. These berries were packed with natural compounds that strengthened the immune system, helping fend off seasonal sicknesses. The flowers could also be brewed into teas that eased fevers, a lifesaver when families couldn't afford doctors. Resourceful families found ways to capture that healing all winter long. They made elderberry syrups, locking in the medicinal properties of the berries for the cold months ahead. These bushes, once overlooked, became critical to staying healthy. They grew wild all across the U.S., but savvy households moved them closer, creating a backyard remedy garden. Beyond medicine, elderberries were versatile. They could be turned into preserves, wine, and even dyes, an alternative to store-bought products when money was tight. If you're enjoying this look back into Depression-era survival fruits, think about supporting us on Patreon. Your contribution helps us dig up more lost knowledge and revive these plants in modern gardens. You'll find a link in the description below. Every patron receives our exclusive seed-saving guide featuring these remarkable historical crops. Currants. During those lean years, keeping children healthy was every parent's top concern. That's where currants made a quiet but powerful difference. These small berries didn't look like much, but they packed a nutritional punch, boasting 4 times the vitamin C of oranges. At a time when citrus was a rare indulgence, currants brought essential nutrients straight from the backyard. Depression-era moms relied on them, turning the berries into jams and preserves to keep their children strong through winter. The plants thrived in tight spots, too. A single bush could yield 10 pounds of fruit from just a few feet of garden. And currants offered yet another advantage. These bushes flourished in the cold northern regions where many other fruits struggled. From Michigan to Maine, families relied on these hardy plants, which actually thrived in harsh winters. They produced an abundance of berries even in short growing seasons. During the most difficult years of the Great Depression, these vitamin-rich berries were essential in keeping northern families healthy when medical care was simply out of reach. Juneberries, service berries. After enduring a long winter with no fresh produce, the first berries of spring became a highly sought-after treasure. That's when Juneberries earned their place in Depression-era gardens. These native berries appeared weeks before strawberries, providing vital vitamins when families needed them most. Unlike imported fruits, which were often too expensive, Juneberry bushes offered free food that only grew more plentiful year after year. The sweet purple berries resembled blueberries but had a distinct almond-like flavor, making them a special treat after months of preserved foods. Depression-era families quickly learned that these plants were incredibly low maintenance, needing no spraying or fertilizing while still yielding an abundance of fruit every spring. The bushes grew into attractive small trees that not only supplied food, but also added ornamental beauty to modest homes. What truly set Juneberries apart was their reliability. They bloomed late enough to avoid spring frosts, and their fruit would set even during droughts when other crops failed. This dependability made them a vital resource, worth their weight in gold to families struggling to survive in uncertain times. Huckleberries. While many Americans today may have forgotten what real huckleberries are, Depression-era families relied on these wild berries for their intense flavor and high nutritional value. Unlike blueberries, which require acidic soil and careful maintenance, wild huckleberries grew in the woods and mountains across America. During the Depression, families would make special trips to gather these flavorful berries, often bringing home gallons to preserve for the winter. Huckleberries were rich in antioxidants, even more so than blueberries, and provided crucial health benefits when medical help was hard to come by. What made them even more special was their long shelf life. The thick-skinned berries could be stored for weeks without refrigeration, far outlasting more delicate fruits. This made it possible for families to enjoy fresh berries long after they had been picked. Some enterprising families took things a step further, transplanting wild huckleberry bushes into their backyards, creating reliable food sources that required little to no cultivation. Though the bushes grew slowly, they would produce berries for decades, growing more valuable as each year passed. Cornelian cherries. During the darkest days of the Great Depression, some immigrants from Eastern Europe introduced Americans to an ancient fruit that had provided sustenance through hard times for centuries: the cornelian cherry. These small, red fruits, which belonged to the dogwood family, were not true cherries, but they played a crucial role in food security during the Depression era. The tart fruits ripened in late summer, a time when most other fruits had already finished their harvest, effectively extending the season by weeks. What made cornelian cherries particularly valuable was their incredibly high vitamin C content, far exceeding that of oranges. This made them an essential source of nutrition, especially when scurvy threatened poorly nourished communities. Families during the Depression preserved the fruit as jam, juice, and even as a substitute for cranberry sauce. The trees were also remarkable for their longevity, with some continuing to produce fruit for over 100 years. The idea of planting something that could feed generations gave families a sense of both food security and emotional comfort in such uncertain times. Beach plums. While inland families had their own food strategies, those living along the Atlantic coast relied on a special native fruit: the beach plum. These hardy shrubs thrived in sandy, salty soil where few other plants could survive. Like a gift from the sea, beach plums offered abundant harvests of small purple plums that made exceptional preserves. Depression-era families would gather these wild fruits in large quantities, turning them into jars of beach plum jelly, which became highly sought after, especially by inland neighbors who didn't have access to this coastal treasure. What made beach plums especially valuable was their natural abundance in areas too barren for traditional farming. Coastal regions, which were too windswept and sandy for conventional crops, produced gallons of these fruits without requiring any cultivation or special care. Some resourceful families even transplanted beach plum shrubs to their coastal properties, creating edible hedges that provided both food and protection from ocean winds. During the toughest years of the Depression, these salt-tolerant fruits transformed harsh coastal environments into productive food landscapes, helping seaside communities survive. Nanking cherries. Time was as precious as money during the Depression, and that's where Nanking cherries prove their worth. In just 2 years, faster than most other fruit-bearing plants, families could go from planting bare shrubs to harvesting gallons of tart, sweet cherries. This rapid production made Nanking cherries invaluable to families who had lost their farms and homes. Even those renting modest houses could confidently plant Nanking cherries, knowing they would yield fruit before they needed to move on. But speed wasn't their only advantage. These hardy bushes thrived in poor soil, drought, and neglect, producing reliable crops even under harsh conditions. Nanking cherries provided a consistent and valuable food source for families facing uncertainty during the Depression. When other fruits failed, the small red Nanking cherries ripened in early summer, offering fresh fruit when few other options were available. Depression-era families found Nanking cherries invaluable for making preserves, juice, and even wine, all without the labor-intensive pitting required for larger cherries. Additionally, the shrubs served a dual purpose as living fences, keeping livestock out of gardens while simultaneously providing abundant food. This efficiency was crucial during times when every inch of land needed to contribute something useful. Medlars, during the Depression, having fresh fruit in the winter seemed nearly impossible without refrigeration. However, European immigrants brought with them knowledge of a unique fruit that offered a remarkable solution: the medlar. Unlike modern fruits, which spoil quickly after harvesting, medlars had an unusual quality that Depression-era families found priceless. The hard fruits could be stored for months in cool rooms, gradually softening through a process called bledding, until they developed a rich apple butter-like flavor in the depths of winter. At a time when fresh fruit in January was a luxury, medlar trees provided a winter miracle through their unique ripening process. Families would harvest the fruits after the first frost and store them in straw-lined boxes, checking periodically for perfectly bled fruits that would offer rare winter treats. Medlar trees were exceptionally long-lived, often producing fruit for 50 years or more, and they required minimal care once established. This reliability, combined with the unusual winter harvest, made medlar trees especially valuable to forward-thinking families who were planning for long-term food security. Wild black raspberries. While cultivated berries required garden space and careful tending, Depression-era families discovered a wild treasure growing in neglected fence rows and woodland edges: wild black raspberries. These native berries offered more flavor and nutrition than their garden counterparts while requiring absolutely no cultivation. During the Depression, children would be sent out with pails to gather these wild fruits, which grew abundantly in areas deemed unsuitable for farming. A single afternoon of picking could yield gallons of berries, which were preserved for winter use. What made these wild berries particularly valuable was their staggered ripening, offering fresh fruit for weeks rather than all at once. Families could harvest them daily, enjoying fresh berries while preserving the surplus for the colder months. Some resourceful families even transplanted wild raspberry canes closer to their homes, creating productive hedges along property lines. These hedges served as both boundary markers and food sources, requiring no garden space or special care. During America's most challenging economic times, these dual-purpose plantings turned property edges into valuable food-producing assets. Highbush cranberries. When vitamin-rich foods were most needed yet least affordable, Depression-era families in northern states turned to a wild, native fruit, the highbush cranberry. Despite its name, this plant isn't a true cranberry but a viburnum that produces bright red berries that persist on the branches through winter. Unlike most fruits, which need to be harvested and preserved before the first frost, highbush cranberries actually improve in flavor after freezing. Families could leave them on the bushes, nature's own storage system, and harvest small amounts throughout the winter whenever they needed a vitamin C boost. The berries made excellent preserves, sauces, and even cough syrup, providing crucial health benefits when medicine was out of reach. Mothers knew that a spoonful of highbush cranberry jelly could give their children a much-needed immune boost during the cold winter months. These hardy native shrubs thrived in wet areas where other food plants struggled, turning soggy land into productive food landscapes. During the Depression, their ability to produce valuable nutrition from otherwise unproductive land made highbush cranberries especially important for rural families with varied property types. Japanese quinces. During the Depression, even ornamental plants had to serve a practical purpose, and that's where Japanese quince bushes showed their hidden value. These common landscape shrubs, typically planted for their brilliant spring flowers, had a secret. Their hard yellow fruits were rich in pectin and flavor. Depression-era homemakers discovered that these forgotten fruits could be turned into exceptional jellies and preserves, helping stretch expensive sugar further than almost any other fruit. The high pectin content meant that even a small amount of quince could turn other fruits into perfect jams with minimal sweetener. What made these plants particularly valuable was their ability to serve multiple purposes in tight spaces. A Japanese quince hedge could define property lines, create privacy, and still produce bushels of useful fruits. These hardy shrubs were also highly resilient, surviving complete neglect and continuing to produce both beautiful flowers and useful fruits, even when families had little time or resources to tend gardens. During America's toughest times, these reliable plants kept producing food, even when totally ignored, providing sustenance from landscape plants that many neighbors grew only for decoration. Buffalo berries. In the Dust Bowl regions, where drought devastated conventional crops, Depression-era families turned to a remarkable native plant, the buffalo berry. These silverleaf shrubs had mastered the art of producing food with minimal water, offering sweet tart red berries even during the driest years. Their ability to thrive in harsh, dry conditions made buffalo berries a crucial resource for families living in areas where other crops had failed. Unlike orchard fruits that withered during droughts, buffalo berries had adapted to the harsh plains environment. They developed deep roots that could tap into moisture even in the driest conditions. Families in drought-stricken areas discovered that these native plants could produce when nothing else could. The berries appeared silvery on the branches until the first frost, when they turned bright red and sweet. This natural cold storage system meant families could harvest them at their convenience rather than rushing to preserve fruit before it spoiled. Some Native American tribes had relied on these berries for generations, and they taught Depression-era settlers that whipping the berries with sugar created a unique pink foam that would hold its texture for hours. This became a rare treat during a time when desserts were largely a thing of the past. Mayhaws. While northern states had their berry strategies, southern families during the Depression turned to a special native fruit, the mayhaw. These small tree fruits resembled miniature apples and ripened in May, weeks before most other fruits became available. Growing wild in swampy areas often deemed unsuitable for traditional farming, mayhaws provided precious early-season nutrition when winter food supplies were running low and spring gardens had yet to produce. Families would wade into swamps to gather these prized fruits, which they would turn into brilliant red jellies and syrups. What made mayhaws particularly valuable was their ability to thrive in flooding-prone areas, where other food plants would drown. This meant families could obtain nutrition from land that couldn't support typical crops. The resulting bright red jelly became so prized that it transcended its humble origins, becoming a special trade item or a gift for Christmas during the Depression's darkest days. These swamp treasures offered both essential nutrition and rare moments of sweetness in difficult times. Passion fruits. In the Deep South, Depression-era families discovered a native vine that produced exotic tropical fruits with little care, the maypop passion flower. These remarkable vines would emerge in the spring, quickly covering fences or arbors, and produce hollow, egg-sized fruits by late summer. Unlike many garden plants that needed good soil and careful tending, maypops thrived in poor conditions, spreading underground and returning stronger each year. The fruits contained tart, seed-filled pulp that made exceptional juice, preserves, and flavorings when sugar was available. What made these native passion fruits especially valuable was their dual harvest. The tender growing tips could be harvested like spinach in the spring, while the fruits provided full nutrition later on. The vines also produced stunning purple flowers that supported native pollinators, indirectly boosting yields in vegetable gardens. During America's hardest times, these multi-purpose vines turned unused vertical spaces into productive food landscapes with minimal care in return. The timeless berry. While regular strawberries needed full garden beds and yielded just a short seasonal crop, immigrants from Europe during the Depression brought with them a unique solution: alpine strawberries. These small yet potent plants offered flavorful, bite-sized berries consistently from early spring until the first frost. Unlike the bigger, fussier varieties, alpine strawberries thrived even in shady spots, making them ideal for families with limited growing conditions. They formed neat, perennial clumps and didn't send out the aggressive runners that made standard strawberries hard to control. What truly set these tiny fruits apart was their continuous yield. Instead of short bursts, they delivered berries for months on end. This meant struggling families had a steady source of fresh, vitamin-rich fruit to nourish their children all summer and into fall. Another huge advantage: these plants could live and produce for 5 to 7 years without needing to be replanted. During an era of extreme uncertainty, their low maintenance and dependable nature made them invaluable to those with little time or energy for gardening. Chokecherries. At a time when nutrition was crucial but fresh food was out of reach, Native American knowledge pointed families toward an incredible native species, the chokecherry tree. Its small, deep-colored fruits thrived across much of North America, and did so without needing any human intervention. Despite their name and tartness, chokecherries transformed beautifully into jams, syrups, and natural remedies when cooked. Families learned that with just a bit of sugar, the berry's strong flavor mellowed into a sweet, cherry-like taste kids loved. But beyond flavor, they delivered an astonishing amount of antioxidants, among the highest of any native fruit. These properties offered vital health support at a time when access to doctors and medicine was rare, resistant to drought, and dependable even during the Dust Bowl. Chokecherry trees provided fruit when most other crops withered. From forgotten roadside thickets to edges of forests, they quietly delivered free nourishment and healing to desperate families. Barberries. During the Great Depression, even fences had to earn their keep, and that's where barberry shrubs prove their worth. Often planted as protective hedges, these thorn-covered bushes held a powerful secret. Their vibrant red berries were loaded with vitamin C, a lifesaver during winters when fresh produce was scarce. Though too sour to enjoy raw, these berries made excellent jellies and tonics that helped ward off scurvy and other deficiencies. Thanks to their high pectin content, they required less sugar than most fruits when turned into preserves, making them a smart choice for families trying to stretch their supplies. Why barberries mattered. The true worth of barberry bushes came from their incredible versatility. Their sharp thorns acted as natural fences, keeping animals from trampling garden plots, while the very same plants offered nutrient-rich berries in return, an efficient use of space at a time, when every square foot of garden had to serve more than one role. For some immigrant households, particularly from Eastern Europe, these shrubs held another secret. Their tender spring leaves could be picked and added to soups, delivering vital nutrients during early spring. So instead of just being a thorny fence, the plant provided two harvests in one, something especially precious when resources were thin: crab apples. While today's farms prioritize large, sweet apple varieties, families in the Depression turned to something much sturdier: crab apple trees. These rugged relatives of standard apples thrived even when completely ignored, making them a lifeline for households facing uncertain futures. Unlike the more delicate orchard apples that needed pruning and pesticide sprays, crab apples flourished with no special treatment, bearing fruit for decades. Though too sour for casual snacking, the small, firm fruits were perfect for jams, vinegar, and jelly bases. What truly made them essential was their reliability. They bloomed after late frosts, reducing the chance of crop failure, and their natural resistance to disease meant they succeeded without the need for expensive care. Mothers during the Depression found that adding just a few crab apples to any fruit blend guaranteed a firm set. No need to buy pectin. This made them an indispensable part of home preserving, where every jar had to work the first time because failed batches weren't an option. Even the pruned branches had value. Their dense, fine-grained wood was used for carving tools, kitchen items, and handmade toys. In a world where nothing could be wasted, the tree offered both nutrition and utility. Crab apples were also planted along the edges of gardens as windbreaks, shielding fragile crops from harsh weather. Their early fragrant blossoms drew in bees, supporting pollination for the whole garden. And for those with hives, they even helped boost honey production. Some varieties, like the Dogo crab apple, had fruits big enough to slice and dry like rings, providing a naturally sweet winter snack that needed no added sugar. In some of America's darkest days, these multifunctional trees stood as quiet protectors of health and sustenance, earning their place in nearly every rural yard. Autumn olives, when survival depended on each plant doing more than one job. Autumn olive shrubs proved to be quiet champions of the Depression garden. These extraordinary plants were more than just food sources. They actually enhanced the soil they grew in. Through a process called nitrogen fixation, they made the ground richer, helping nearby crops grow more abundantly. The silverleaf shrubs also yielded massive fall harvests, producing up to 80 pounds of small red berries per mature plant, right when most other fruits had already vanished from gardens. Families enduring the hardships of the Depression learned to turn these tart sweet berries into preserves, juices, and fruit leathers that lasted well into winter. Their most valuable trait, however, was their ability to flourish in poor soil, even in gravel-filled patches or heavy clay, areas where other crops simply wouldn't grow. This meant families could harvest food from land others considered barren. Birds helped the plants spread, carrying seeds and creating dense, productive thickets from a single bush in just a few seasons. In the bleakest of years, these self-spreading plants offered sustained food supplies, with little to no labor required. Their thick growth also made them excellent natural fences and windbreaks, turning unused spaces into fruit-producing zones. The dense foliage provided shelter for birds and helpful insects, which in turn kept garden pests in check without pesticides. The berries, though not fully understood then, have now been shown to contain 17 times more lycopene than tomatoes, a potent antioxidant. This could explain why families who regularly ate them often seemed more resistant to everyday sicknesses. Another hidden strength of the plant lay underground, its deep-reaching roots. They held soil firmly in place, even on steep slopes that couldn't be farmed. During the Dust Bowl era, those who had planted autumn olives saw their land remain intact while neighboring fields were swept away by wind. These tough shrubs didn't just offer food. They physically held families' land together through nature's worst trials. Rhubarb. While most fruits required replanting or detailed attention, rhubarb became a Depression-era staple thanks to its incredible resilience. Once planted, it came back year after year, often thriving for over 2 decades. With barely any care at all, its real value lay in its timing. Rhubarb was one of the earliest edible crops to emerge after winter. Its tart stalks were ready to harvest weeks before other fruits appeared, offering a crucial dose of vitamin C, just when families were most at risk of nutritional deficiency. Homemakers of the time embraced its versatility, crafting pies, sauces, wines, and tonics from its plentiful stems. When sugar was hard to come by, rhubarb could be blended with sweeter ingredients like strawberries to stretch limited supplies, making it a smart and flexible choice for resourceful kitchens. What made rhubarb especially vital was how well it flourished with minimal attention. Even in years when families were stretched thin and gardens were neglected, rhubarb kept producing large yields. In the face of widespread hardship, this self-reliant perennial continued to feed households when most other crops failed, earning it a lasting place in Depression-era food resilience. Its massive leaves, though not edible, found clever use in daily life. Families laid them flat to wrap butter, utilizing the leaves' natural acids to extend freshness in the absence of refrigeration. They even doubled as makeshift sun hats or umbrellas, shielding gardeners during long summer days or sudden spring rains. Rhubarb also played a quiet role in household health. Its dried roots served as a gentle laxative, replacing the need for costly medicines. Meanwhile, The stalks offered much-needed calcium and potassium, crucial nutrients when milk and dairy were scarce. But perhaps rhubarb's greatest gift was its dependability as a seasonal signal. When its first red crowns emerged from the thawing earth, it was time to begin spring planting, a natural reminder for families without calendars or farming guides. This botanical clock helped anchor the year, guiding food production efforts when timing meant survival. And once established, a single rhubarb plant could yield 20 to 30 pounds of edible stalks each season, without fertilizers or fuss. That was enough to make dozens of preserves, bringing color and nourishment to otherwise dreary winter meals. Its blend of high productivity and low maintenance made rhubarb more than a garden crop. It became a symbol of endurance through lean times. These 25 Depression-era fruits weren't just plants. They were lifelines, carefully chosen for their ability to sustain families when nothing else could. Many still survive today, lovingly grown by those who understand their enduring worth. If this glimpse into the forgotten fruits of survival resonated with you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more timeless knowledge from the past. Which of these fruits surprised you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and stay tuned as we dig deeper into the survival secrets of our ancestors.